Okay, so just leave. All you got to do now is just leave it that way, dear. Okay, we good? We good? All right, this is the training today with the Huntsville 211 call center here in Huntsville at the Crisis Services of Northern Alabama. Okay, and we've got this on YouTube so that many of the other 211 chapters can take advantage of this training and be able to share with your other call center employees as far as what we're doing with the Alabama Council on Compulsive Gambling. First thing I want to talk about this afternoon with all of you that are here is my name's Roger Olson. I am a recovering compulsive gambler. I have not gambled since March 4th, 1995, and I did not gamble today, all one day at a time. But my story is so typical of those that fall into problem gambling. And first off, before I go any further, let me mention to everyone that the Alabama Council on Compulsive Gambling is 100% neutral when it comes to the subject of gambling. Okay, and especially with what's going on in the state of Alabama right now as far as legalizing or not legalizing gambling. Okay, our organization does not have a dog in that fight. Okay, we're not concerned as to whether or not the legislation does this or does that. All right, but where we are concerned is that if it is voted that gambling will be increased in the state, then what are you going to provide for treatment as far as problem gamblers within the state? And we'll get more to that as we get a little bit farther down the road. But I was very typical of gambling addiction in that I had never gambled before. Okay, and by the way, I don't fit the typical male. I'm going to use the word mold for problem gambling. I did not gamble in school. Okay, most male problem gamblers, we find that they started very early on in life, usually during adolescence. They were on the playground, you know, playing poker, making sports bets. We'll get to that a little bit farther down the road. But I was a pastor in Southern California, and looked in the LA Times one day and saw that there was a place called Laughlin, Nevada, which was like a little resort town near Bullhead City, Arizona. And it advertised with rooms that were very inexpensive and meals that were very inexpensive. And I'm a pastor with a young wife and 3 young children. And I'm thinking, hey, how can I beat this? This is too good to be true. So I end up taking my wife and kids there for a little vacation, all right? And I'm on limited means, so I'm thinking, wow, this is great. So while I'm there, I take some time to walk around the casino and play a few games. It's all slot machines, all right? And by the way, we know from research and the brain that slot machines are the most addictive form of gambling, okay? All those machines, when it comes to problem gamblers, okay, the lights, the sounds, the different effects that those machines create, it's all done for a specific reason. And we're going to talk about that on Friday during the other training that I'm going to be doing here for the clinicians. So we walk around and we just play a few machines just for fun, and we end up winning more money than what we began the vacation with. When we left Laughlin, Nevada, we had more money in our pocket than when we left San Gabriel, California. And my wife and I looked at each other and we said, how can these people stay in business? Okay? And so then all of a sudden, from that point forward, every vacation opportunity that I had with my wife and kids, we went somewhere where there was a casino involved. If it wasn't going to Las Vegas, it would be going to the California and Alabama state, Nevada state line rather, where they had casinos. Or we'd go back to Laughlin. And sometimes I'd come home on Friday night tired as a dog at 5 o'clock, and I'd say to my wife and kids, come on, hop in the car. We're going to drive to State Line and spend the night there. That's a 3-hour drive. So it wasn't, that'd be like somebody coming up here to Huntsville once a week from Montgomery. And think about it. I'm a pastor. I'm preaching on Sunday mornings. So by the time we go back Saturday night, I'm not even really ready to go into the pulpit on Sunday. All right, but convinced myself that this was a good thing to do, because then I could provide these vacations for my family, and I could be a good husband and a good dad, and convinced myself it was all about the money. Okay, well, it wasn't all about the money. If you are a problem gambler, you're not doing the gambling for the money. Okay, you're doing it for either the rush. If you're a male gambler, most gamblers gamble because of the rush, or most female gamblers gamble for the escape. Now, I say most because I was an escape gambler, okay? And I started using my gambling addiction, or my gambling rather, as a way to escape all the problems of the ministry, convincing myself that I had to go back and keep gambling because I had to make more money. Well, it wasn't that I wasn't making, I was working 3 jobs at that time. So it wasn't that I wasn't getting enough money, it's that I wasn't being financially wise with the money that I was getting. It's similar to some of the callers you get here on 211, where you have to refer people for credit counseling, because they just don't understand the concept of what money is, how to properly take care of your money. See? So I convinced myself, well, I had to gamble because I needed the money. And somewhere I crossed that invisible line that went from responsible gambling to uncontrolled gambling. Okay? Most people are responsible gamblers. Most people gamble for the recreation, the fun, and the entertainment. But those that cross that line, it's like that's the point of no return. And that's why gambling addiction fits the disease model of alcoholism. Okay? To put it very simply for all of you, once the cucumber turns into a pickle, it's never going to go back and become a cucumber again. Okay? So if you're sitting there and you're saying, oh, you mean the philosophy, once a problem gambler, always a problem gambler? Yeah, that's the way it is. And the first bet for me is like the first drink to an alcoholic. Let's say all of a sudden that this water was vodka. Okay? Well, then in that case, just a sip of this chemical, okay, is going to throw me right back into my addiction, and I'm going to sit here and probably drink this one and whatever other ones you might have in the building. So for a problem gambler, one bet is too many, and 1,000,000 bets is not enough. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. And the insanity of my disease got me over a 3-year time period that by the time I finally hit my rock bottom, I was dropping my wife off at work. I was driving to Ontario Airport in Southern California, hopping on a Southwest Airlines jet, flying to Las Vegas, because I didn't want to make that 3.5-hour drive anymore. So I'm flying to Las Vegas, gambling away my entire paycheck, and then coming back to the airport. Always left money in the glove box for the parking, just in case I needed that. Always set that aside. And then I would drive and pick up my wife from work, and she'd say, "Honey, how was your day at work today?" And I'd say, "Oh, it was just another day at the office." And so all of a sudden, one day in November of 1994, I wake up and I'm bankrupt in all areas of my life, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. My wife divorces me. My kids don't want to have anything to do with me. We lose our house. I lose my car. I lose my ability to preach. In fact, I was told in California, you'll never preach again. That's it. You're washed up. Nobody's going to want a pastor who got addicted to gambling and threw his wife and kids under the bus. And yet the whole time I'm gambling. And this is how problem gamblers think. Just one more bet. just one more bet. I'm going to get that big win. You know, just if I just keep betting it away. All the money that I borrowed from people, or the bad checks that I wrote, or the things that I sold or pawned to get money to gamble, okay? I always thought in the back of my mind, this is okay, this is not a problem, because I'm going to get this money back. I'm going to get this money back when I hit the mother lode, okay? Well, I never hit the mother lode, because whatever I won when I was gambling, I just gambled it right, you know, right back, you know. When Kenny Rogers recorded the song "The Gambler," you know, the tagline there is, "You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to what? Walk away." And a problem gambler can't walk away. And right now there are people in casinos all across this country, you know, 75 years old. They're wearing 5 layers of Depend diapers, and they're sitting there messing their pants so that they won't get up from their machine and they can keep playing, you know. And as crude as that example is, that's the way it is. I mean, that's a true story. Ask some of the security people that work in any casino anywhere, and they're going to tell you that's the way it is. So, after I relapsed, March 4th, 1995 was the last bet that I ever made, and my wife and I, a year after that, came here to Alabama. We came to Alabama Labor Day weekend of 1996, and I went back to college to try to find out why someone in my situation would gamble away everything that they had over this addiction. Got a degree in psychology, my BS degree in psychology. 2 weeks later, went right into the master's program, got a master's degree in counseling, and the Alabama Council on Compulsive Gambling brought me on board in June of 2012 as the Resource Development Coordinator, and then that's down the road. That's where we made the connection with 211. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that now in just a minute. But first, let me talk about the National Council on Problem Gambling. But before I do that, are there any questions I can answer for any of you about my story? Anything that comes to mind? If there is, you can ask me a little bit later, okay? All right. I'd be glad to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. All right. So about 40 years ago, some people from Gamblers Anonymous went to some people in Washington, D.C., and they said, we would like to get some help. There are things that Gamblers Anonymous can't do that therapists can do, and we have no one out there that's helping problem gamblers. And so the National Council on Problem Gambling in Washington, D.C. was formed over 40 years ago. Okay? And then in about 2010, the Alabama Council on Compulsive Gambling was formed, and in 2012, just a few months before I came on board with them, they received permission from the National Council in Washington, D.C. to become the official state affiliate for the state of Alabama. So if someone said, well, what do you all do? Okay, well, what we do is, number one, we work with people on public awareness. We go out into the masses and we tell people, what is problem gambling? What should you be looking for? What are some of the things that might possibly put you at high risk? Now, for instance, I suffer from ADHD, okay? My wife will tell you, there are times when I just can't even sit still. Won't you, dear? You would say that, correct? All right. Y'all can't see her head shaking, yes, because she's behind the camera today. All right. So for me, you know, people with ADHD, a lot of times, they need a Scooby snack. You all know Scooby-Doo, right? And what are they always giving Scooby to keep him happy? They're giving him Scooby snacks. Well, for a person that has ADHD, that Scooby snack is when I can stop what I'm doing and just kind of focus on something else. going and gambling and playing slot machines, that was my Scooby snack. Okay, that was my activity that allowed me to kind of zone out everything else, but just focus on the gambling. All right. Now the reason we know that it's an addiction for some people is because you keep doing the behavior in lieu or in light of the negative consequences that continue to transpire. Okay. My father asked my wife, "How is it that my son can skip 13 mortgage payments and you don't know anything about it?" And my wife simply told him, "Bill, it's because I trusted him. See, I paid all the bills. I had no accountability." All right. So one of the first things we do is we go out and we talk to the masses about public awareness. Okay. The second thing we do is we go all throughout Alabama and we train clinicians to become Alabama certified gambling counselors. Okay. And it's our hope and our goal to have at least 100 trained therapists within the state of Alabama, and to have at least one counselor in every county, so that no one can ever be told, "I'm sorry, we don't have anybody that is in Etowah County. We don't have anybody that's in Madison County." And that's why I'm excited about the training that I'm going to be doing here tomorrow and Friday, okay? Because now, for the first time in the history of Alabama, there's going to be people here in Huntsville that are going to get a chance to become certified gambling counselors. And we do it over a 30-hour training course. So tomorrow and Friday, I'll be bringing in Unit 1 for that 10 hours of training, okay? Now, the last thing that we do at the Alabama Council on Compulsive Gambling is that we get the national hotline number, which you'll see down at the bottom of our brochure. We get that national hotline number out in front of the masses. We let them know if they have a gambling problem, they can call that number. Right now, that 1-800 number, if you have an Alabama area code, that number goes directly to the Montgomery 211 office, Hands-On River Region. Okay? When they answer the call on that line during the daytime hours, they will actually say, "Alabama Council on Compulsive Gambling." Okay? And so that way, they are able to we've trained their staff. They're able to take those calls directly as a representative of the Alabama Council. Now, we're also in the process of running public service announcements on both radio and television. We're also in the process of putting billboards up all throughout Alabama. Okay, we're not going to do it like 10 or 20 tomorrow, but we're doing it obviously one billboard at a time. And those billboards are simply going to say, if you have a gambling problem, call 211. And that's where your job, as well as your job, if you're watching this from another 211 chapter somewhere, that's where your job is so vitally important, okay? Because you sometimes become the conduit for the first contact that these problem gamblers have once they decided that they need help, okay? They wake up one day. The kid's college money's been spent. The mortgage hasn't been paid for a month and they're facing eviction. The wife doesn't know where food is going to come for the next several weeks. The power's already been turned off, okay? The cat's out of the bag, okay? What are we going to do, all right? And hopefully that's when someone will say, call 211, call 211. So in your database, and we are adding names to this database through the Montgomery office, okay? Joanne Johnson and Timberly Williams is keeping that database up to date constantly, all right? But we're adding names to that database all the time of counselors as they finish the training. These are counselors that we know are either LPCs, ALCs, social workers, certified gambling addiction counselors or people that have life experience, okay? And so these people are the ones then that you can refer depending on where they call from. This is important for all of you because I don't have to tell you, after hours, you get calls from all over the state of Alabama, okay? And, you know, worst case scenario is that if there's not a counselor right now in their area, you can always refer them to me if they need to call someone. You can always refer them to mental health, which is, you know, some help is better than no help at all. Or you can refer them to whatever resources your chapter or any other chapter has for handling mental health issues. Okay. We also are constantly updating the database with support groups. Okay. There's like 9 Gamblers Anonymous meetings right now. There used to be one here at Huntsville at a Baptist church, but I've been told, unfortunately, that it closed down. Okay, but there's Gamblers Anonymous groups all throughout Alabama. There's also Celebrate Recovery, which, again, if the caller doesn't mind going to a church-sponsored program, you know, that's a program where they sort of have a melting pot of various addictions. Okay. And as we get more support groups that we're aware of, we will get them into your database. And I don't know how often, Jessica, your reps check that database, but I know they do it on a per call basis, but I don't know if they ever have a time to just get on there and see if we've added anything. But we're trying to add people and groups on there as much as we can. And so when you get these people on the phone, again, one of the benefits of using 211 that our organization looked into is the fact that also you're going to have all the wraparound services. It might be the wife that's calling you, or, well, I should say spouse. I shouldn't be assumptive here. Okay. but it might be the spouse calling you and saying, I don't know what to do. There's no food on the table. Well, let me give you these resources there in your area. And what about the power? The power's turned off, and I've got 3 small children. Let me give you the number of someone that might be able to help you with the power bill. And God only knows what my spouse has done. You know, I'm scared to even look at my credit report. Well, I can make a referral for you in that area also. And I think we might have to file bankruptcy, and I don't even know what we're going to do about that. Well, let me get you with some low-cost legal aid in the state. Now, I don't know if the ones that you refer can help them with bankruptcy, but the main thing I'm getting at here is that there's the wraparound services are there. Okay. Another thing when you're talking about problem gamblers that I want you all to be aware of, this is excellent water. This is excellent water, and it's purified too. So, if you'd like to purchase some of this, please, that's just water. Just contact the Huntsville 211 office. They'll get it for you. That was known as an icebreaker. Okay. Let's talk about suicide for just a moment and suicide ideation. There is a 2 to 3 times higher rate of suicide and suicide ideation amongst gambling addicts than any other addiction or group that's out there. Now, I can tell you a story about Ricky Dawson. We have Ricky's story on our YouTube page. And that's where this video is going to be placed, on our YouTube page. And Ricky Dawson embezzled $6.5 million from the United States government. And when it was discovered that he had done this, okay, or I need to back off. When the feds came and told him, don't leave, you're going to be arrested, and we're going to escort you home, okay, he thought, boy, the only way out of this is to commit suicide, and then my wife won't have to suffer. So he took a gun and he went and sat under a tree. And that day, for some reason, his dog went with him. And his dog wouldn't leave his side. And I mean, we're talking about a huge piece of property here, as with so many people in Alabama. And so Ricky said, you know, it was his wife's voice, and his wife's voice was calling the dog. You know, she opened the door and she said, "Here, so-and-so," you know. And so Ricky got up and he walked over and he told his wife what had happened. And he's now in Atlanta doing his sentence there for problem gambling. Okay. And by the way, Ricky's poison was day trading on the stock market. Okay. In just a moment, we're going to talk about what gambling is. Okay. So that you get a good, clear picture. But the point I'm trying to get at is that for gambling addicts, when they look at all this money that they've spent and all this destruction that they've done, many times they'll just simply say, you know what? I'm going to have my winning moment. I'm going to have that last win. I'm just going to take a gun or walk in front of a train or whatever it is. And if they don't actually go through with it, they think about going through with it. Now, the fact that you all run the suicide crisis prevention line here out of the same office, that was another reason that the Alabama Council chose 211 for our call center referral program, because of the fact that you will get callers that tell you, hey, I'm just calling because I saw the number to reach out for help, and you know, I've gambled away $200,000, and there's no way I'm going to get that money back, and I'm not going to let those people come after me. I'm just going to end it right here, and then you watch them collect. You know. Of course, the sad thing is they're not thinking about the people that love them that are going to miss them once they do that. All right. But when we talk about winning and losing, and that's a powerful concept with problem gamblers. Okay, we talk about winning and losing. Okay. Suicide always appears to be the big win, the big escape, the big cure-all for all the problems, okay? So I just want to let you know that within this small group, okay, within this small group, you're going to have those people, and you'll be amazed when you talk to these people on the phone, maybe you already have, of how just shamed and depressed and just, you know, it's like the end of the world is coming and they don't know what to do. And that's a difficult thing. Your main job, obviously, is to take the information and make the referral, okay? But anything you can make with that referral, depending on how you make it, you know, to let that therapist know that, hey, this person was, you know, was suicidal. You need to check into this, okay? Unless, of course, it's so critical that you all know that you need to take it to the next level and follow the procedures here at your 211 office or whatever 211 office is looking at that, okay?